Now let's start our afternoon meeting. Before lunch, we adopted until para 4 of this draft decision 12.com/7. Over the lunch break, the Secretariat worked to revise Annex 1. This reflects the committee's consensus to create 3 new extra budgetary fixed-term posts. This is the version that you now see on the screen. I give the floor to Mr. Curtis to present the revised Annex 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. And first, I would like to thank the committee and the committee members for acknowledging the critical situation we're facing in terms of human resources, and particularly in relation to the implementation of the international assistance. So as the Chair has explained, Decision 4 has been adopted, but Decision 4 refers to Annex 1, where the details of the budget are. So we are proposing a revised Annex 1. So we will ask you to adopt the revised Annex 1, and you will see how the revised Annex 1 now contains 3 posts in the budget. So, and I remind you that budget lines 1 and 2 are the underutilized budget lines, so that 1 now represents 52.55% of the overall fund. Budget line 1.1 represents 8.2% of the overall fund, and budget line 2 represents 4% of the overall fund, and all other budget lines remain as they were in your proposal. So you are being asked to now adopt the annex, which includes 3 posts, a P3, a P2, and a G5, as was discussed. So you have to ask if there are any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Dear committee members, do you have any comments on the revised annex as presented just ago by the Secretariat?
Guatemala.
I recognize the permanent delegate of Guatemala. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just would like to ask to the Secretariat if we have seen that according to this modification, now lines number 1, 1.1, and 2 have been modified. My question is, was it possible as well to do these adjustments with the other numbers between 3 and 8, just to clarify why those two? Thank you.
Sure, I understand. Quite simply because these are the lines where the money is not being used. These are the lines, budget line 2 we saw, only 9% of budget line 2 was used in the last biennium, and I can't remember the exact percentage which I quoted, which is the international assistance. So because these are the heavily underutilized budget lines where we keep having money. The other budget lines are being fully used. So this is why we chose those 2 budget lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Are there any comments or any questions? I see none. May I now ask the committee to adopt the revised annex as amended and as shown on the screens? No comments, no objections, so adopted. Now let's go back to draft decision 12.com, para 5. Can we see on screens? Para 5, taking note of the need to enhance the resources of the Secretariat to tackle the currently underused mechanisms of international assistance and welcoming the proposal for the creation of now 3 new extra budgetary fixed term posts. Are there any objections? Adopted. Para 6, proposing to continue with the current practices of delegating to our Bureau the approval of those expenditures that are proposed by the Secretariat within the scope of the other functions of the committees as defined by the Convention. Are there any objections? I see none, so adopted. Para 7, again proposing to continue with the practice that was already applied within the current spending plan for other functions of the committee of allowing a margin of flexibility between activities. Do I see any objections? I see none. Adopted. New paragraph 8. This was one of the additional paras mentioned by the Secretariat yesterday, and the text was sent to committee members last night. This para authorizes a margin of flexibility between lines 4, 5, and 6. Do I see any objections? None. Adopted. And finally, last para 9, to modify Rule 5.5 of the Rules of Procedure of our committee, changing the deadline for state parties to send their request for assistance to participate in Bureau and the committee from 4 to 8 weeks. This is the other para that the Secretariat wished to introduce as a new para. Once again, the text was sent to the committee members last night. Are there any objections? I recognize the permanent delegate of Guatemala.
No objection, Mr. President. Just would like to know from the Secretariat the reasons that motivated the reduction of this period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Yes, I'll explain a little bit what we explained yesterday. The current operational directives require 4 weeks notification in order the deadline of 4 weeks before the committee for participating countries. However, since the rules of UNESCO established by the the administrative rules of UNESCO require that tickets be purchased at least 3 weeks prior to their departure. So there's already a tension between this rule and the rule of UNESCO because simply we cannot process the amount of requests. We're getting more and more requests, and we are expected to buy the tickets 3 weeks before the departure, so it doesn't work. So what has been happening since 2014 is we have been setting a deadline and effectively applying by letter a deadline because it's simply impossible to operate with this deadline. So what we are trying to do is, instead of having some confusion between what we send in the letter and what the rules of procedure say, we are trying to harmonize them. The reality is we cannot process the volume of requests we have in time to meet our administrative rules. So this is why we are trying to align what has actually been practiced since 2014 to what is in the rules of procedure which were established before. And again, this is because we are getting more and more requests as there are more and more member states. So that is the reason why. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Are there any interventions I see none. So, new para 9 was adopted. We have now adopted each of the para, and we need to adopt the decision as a whole. I think there will be no objection. Are there any comments, objections? None. I therefore declare decision 12.7 adopted as amended. Yeah, Secretary asked just for technical announcement. Now, Secretary.
I would just like to inform participants that from now on, and thanks again to the generous contribution of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Arabic interpretation is now available. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on now to... Okay, I now give the floor to Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. President. Et avant de continuer mon propos, أود أن أشكر المملكة العربية السعودية على تقديمها المساعدة المالية كي تكون اللغة العربية حاضرة هنا معنا في هذا الاجتماع. Maintenant, je souhaiterais faire un commentaire sur la décision que nous venons d'adopter, Monsieur le Président, concernant le rôle du bureau. Vous n'êtes pas sans savoir que nous avons adopté, lors de la dernière conférence générale, une décision sur la gouvernance et sur le rôle qui est prédéfini pour le bureau dans cette organisation. Et nous souhaiterions qu'on ait à l'esprit une réflexion sur comment adopter les recommandations de ce groupe de gouvernance pour une application concrète au bureau de la Convention, notamment en ce qui concerne les règles de transparence, la diffusion des minutes du bureau, etc. Donc c'est un commentaire d'ordre général que nous souhaitions faire et pour plus tard, parce que dans un autre point, nous proposerons un amendement qui va dans ce sens. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Okay, thank you, Algeria. Yeah. We will talk about this very important issue at a later stage. On Turkey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I just wanted to support what has been just said by Algeria. This is an important issue that has to be reflected in our work because as Vice Chair of Group 1, we try to be as transparent as possible, trying to be in consultation with our both committee and the entire Group 1 members. So I think it will be important to keep this practice in the future within this convention and committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, Turkey. And any other comments? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I now invite the delegation of Cuba to take the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. C'est justement pour soutenir les commentaires du collègue de l'Algérie. Comme vous connaissez, on vient de travailler pendant 12 années sur toutes ces questions. Et les questions du bureau, c'est bien sensible pour tout le monde, afin d'harmoniser les méthodes de travail, d'éviter et supplanter les questions qui concernent au comité ou aux organes de suivre des conventions. Et ça sera une question très importante qu'on doit réfléchir bien pour que ces comités et ces conventions avancent de la même façon qu'avance l'UNESCO d'une façon générale sur ces questions de gouvernance. Merci beaucoup.
Yeah, I think it's quite relevant, very important issues, how to promote democracy and openness and inclusiveness. And we have achieved a lot of progress during our governance working group in the framework of our general conference and also within the framework of EXB. So I think we achieved a lot. For example, one of the vice chairs, they are playing some bridging role, not just limited to our convention, for the EXB and WHC, and they are playing some bridging role between conventions and the EXBs with the regional groups. So I think we have achieved a lot, and from now on, based upon what we have achieved, we have to make every effort to further improve this very transparent working method. So I totally agree your interventions and your very constructive proposals.